The countdown to 28 years later has begun. Director Danny Boyle and writer-director Alex Garland team up once again to continue their movie series from the 2000s. Boyle has only grown as a filmmaker since he first directed 28 Days Later in 2002, with additions to his directorial resume like Best Picture winner Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours, Yesterday, and more. Alex Garland, on the other hand, who only writes and produces these zombie flicks, has since gone on to direct some amazing films, like 2024's Civil War, Ex Machina, and most recently, Warfare, which was an amazing film. So while 28 Days Later was more of a small budget horror film at the beginning of their career, this will be a much bigger film. While 28 Days had a budget of $8 million and 28 Weeks had a budget of $15 million, 28 Years Later will be a $75 million film shot on an iPhone. We'll get to that later. First, we'll be reviewing, breaking down, and recapping the events of 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later on today's episode of Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review films old and new, the ones you don't like and the ones you do. I'm your host, Kael, and today we are counting down to 28 years later. And I'll give a spoiler warning for 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later. I mean, the films are 23 and 18 years old, so yeah, I'm just gonna talk about them. But first, I have a question to answer. Why is the new film shot on an iPhone? Well, I'll start by saying you need to look at this team specifically. Danny Boyle and his go-to cinematographer Anthony Mantle have always been willing to break some ground and use some uncharted technology. At the beginning of 2002, George Lucas had just become the first feature filmmaker to primarily shoot a film on a digital camera with Attack of the Clones. Mantle and Boyle followed suit by shooting 28 Days Later, also primarily on a digital camera, making 28 Days Later a pioneer in changing the way we shoot movies today. It also made the film doable on its budget, as it was way cheaper to shoot digitally than to shoot on film. Now back to the iPhone, I think they're trying to lean into using some more minimalistic, groundbreaking technology to recreate the style of the original films and the way they were shot. And I know 28 Weeks is directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, who was a friend of Boyle's, but it recreated the style of the first one so much that you can hardly tell the films have different directors. But I think the iPhone pays homage to how they shot these first two films. Even though both films had multi-million-dollar budgets, they still ran a low-budget operation to use that money as wisely as possible. Somewhere along the lines, these guys have decided that the iPhone 15 Pro Max with professional film lenses using an adapter to fit on the iPhone was the right creative and cost-effective choice in creating the unique look for this film. I'll say, from the looks of the trailer, it seems like they have borrowed the cinematic language from the first films, but the color, sharpness, and visual style is much cleaner, brighter, and sharper in this shot on an iPhone big budget version of the story. But that's really the best answer I can give you. Whether you're a super fan of these first two films, someone who just likes them, or someone who hasn't seen them and just wants to get caught up to speed for 28 years later, let's step into this grungy, punk-filled apocalypse. For real though, the style of this film is super nasty all around in a wonderful way. The handheld shots, the quick jarring cuts, and the tilted shots to throw the balance off. I swear, you could cut in grunge music videos with this movie and it would totally work. See? And I'm just gonna say, I think it's wild that 28 Weeks Later ended the way it did and it took 18 years to get any kind of continuation to this story. Not that it needed one entirely, it's totally okay for tragic endings, but man, I'm really glad to know we have a movie on the way. So we'll start by noting the event that we see on day one of the apocalypse. The opening scene of 28 Days shows us that the rage virus came from infected chimpanzees from London. They became infected while doctors tested a drug to prevent uncontrollable rage on them. The rage inhibitor mutated with the Ebola virus to infect the animals with the rage virus. Now, the inciting incident of it all is when these animal rights activists barge into the science lab and demand the chimps are let go due to not receiving proper care. The doctors go back and forth with the activists when they finally release a chimpanzee. It immediately bites onto the activists and the room is infected in no time. I love the rage virus and the fact that they have have made their own version of the classic zombie here. The rage-filled, high-sprung, and sporadic nature of these infected beings make it a terrifying zombie iteration. Night of the Living Dead, The Walking Dead, and most other classic zombie films and shows typically display your slower, closer to death zombie. The characters can easily run away from even hordes of zombies. That is not the case with these rage-filled zombies, however. They are fast enough to hunt you down and even bust through your window. I think that's the coined zombie kill in this series, having a zombie straight up run through a window and attack you. You know, it makes filming by this window just a little creepy, don't you think? Don't you think, Dalton? Oh, hell no. Anyways, we pick up on London's apocalypse, you guessed it, 28 days later. That's when the now Best Actor winner Cillian Murphy wakes up in the hospital. This is kind of one of those zombie story tropes, and 1 year later in 2003, Rick Grimes wakes up in the hospital in the pages of The Walking Dead. The 2000s were just filled with zombie movies, games, and comics. 28 days after the rage virus breakout, Murphy's character Jim stumbles around England's abandoned capital. London is a super awesome location for these two films, by the way. Apocalyptic London is just insane to see. In the first film, we really just see that the UK military did not contain the capital and rather abandoned it. This first film leaves you in the dark on the state of the world, however. The film's main focus is following Jim, Selena, and Hannah as they simply try to survive. One of the things I like most here is that you see the characters start to appreciate the small things once they realize the world has little left to offer them. Things like a conversation with your father, watching horses run, and riding in a car. You see the characters adventure across London to find the location of the military safe haven they heard about on the radio. Things seem to be alright once they arrive until the guy in charge is like, "Yeah, check out this zombie that I have chained up. He's gonna tell me how long it takes for these things to starve to death." And Cillian Murphy's like, cool. Then the sergeant's also like, "Hey, you know, to stop my soldiers from offing themselves, I did promise them that women would come from this radio call, and they need women to have sex with, so you want to go grab those two women you brought?" Jim, like the good lad he is, says F that and makes it his new mission to get Hannah and Selena out of their safe. And this is exactly what he does. The glimpse into the start of the apocalypse is just the beginning for this series, although we never get a finished story for Jim, Selena, and Hannah after Jim rescues them. I haven't seen them in the cast list of the new movie, so who knows? Apparently 28 years later is the first film of a new trilogy they are making within the universe, so maybe we'll see our heroes return. I'd love to see Cillian Murphy come back as Jim. It would be awesome to know that they've made it and survived through the years. Once Jim and crew make it out alive, they set out to go survive elsewhere. This takes us to the opening scene of 28 weeks later, which introduces us to a new family of characters where we see Don. Don runs out of the building that him and a few survivors are in, but the kicker is, he leaves his wife behind. And I love that this gives you so much context for what's going on a national level. 15 days into the outbreak, mainland Britain was quarantined. 28 days in, mainland Britain was destroyed by the rage virus. 5 weeks in, the infected died of starvation. 11 weeks in, American-led NATO forces enter London. 18 weeks in, mainland Britain is declared free of infection. 24 weeks in, Reconstruction begun. And at 28 weeks later, the infected came back. The film's plot was really cool as we see Don and his kids Tammy and Andy as they move back into London. It becomes an emotional venture when he has to tell them that their mom did not survive the rage monsters. It's important to note as they bring people back to London, they're like, "Hey, there are totally parts that we haven't cleaned yet. See signs? Don't go there or you risk reinfecting all of London." I know kids are gonna do stupid shit, but crazy that these kids flirt with reawakening the rage virus. They go back to their old house so that Andy can get a picture of his deceased mom. They risk it all and to their surprise, they find their mom still alive, only she is carrying the virus. Once they get caught, doctors and audiences see for the first time that there is someone who can just carry the disease. They believe that they can use her to create a vaccine for the rage virus. Things seem to be foolproof until Don walks in to apologize to his wife that he totally left for dead. She seems to totally forgive him though, and then lets him come in for a kiss. I'm very up in the air on if I think she genuinely kissed him and didn't know, or if she gave him the virus because he left her for dead. But this reinfects all of London nonetheless. So where our plot gets juicy is when people just begin running through the streets trying to escape the virus. The military again fails to contain the rage zombies and they get the order to shoot everyone in the crowd. Jeremy Renner's character, Sergeant Doyle, just so happens to be watching a kid through his scope at the time the order's given, and he abandons his post instantly to make an attempt to save the kid. This is when he's told by Scarlett, the military doctor who checked out Andy and his mother, that she believes the kids could possess the same immunity, giving them a chance at vaccination. And they lean into this being most likely true after making a point that Andy and his mother shared a specific eye trait. The rest of the film shows Sergeant Doyle doing his best to save these kids, and after giving up his own life to do so, he does. He gets them on a helicopter away from the virus, but the film leaves it open-ended on what happened to Andy and Tammy after we see them in the sky. We do, however, see the helicopter is crashed in an insert shot at the very end, and then we see that the rage virus ends up making it to Paris, where we can see the Eiffel Tower in the background. Different interpretations of the ending say that Andy and his sister may have ended up turning in the helicopter, causing the crash once the helicopter made it to France. Others believe they could have survived. I kind of doubt that they survived if the helicopter crashed. Let me know how you interpret the end of this film in the comments below, and if you think maybe this plot could wrap back around in 28 years later. But given this is the film that they didn't make, it feels like maybe we won't touch on the events of 28 weeks later that much, or at least I could see it happening. And that pretty much catches us up to most of what we know going into 28 years later. I'm super excited for this movie, and I can't wait to see how the rage virus has spread over these 28 years. The zombies look more rotted than they did in the previous movies, so I imagine it's just been a long time of fighting the infected. Are people excited for this Danny Boyle and Alex Garland team up where they'll reunite the 28 Later series? I can't wait to be back here reviewing the movie when it comes out on June 20th. If you enjoyed this episode of Studio Cinema Saturday, drop a like and subscribe to Studio 24. We have over 50 more episodes of the show, along with Television Tuesday, where we talk about the best TV shows. But if you're wanting to watch some zombie flicks to tide you over till 28 years later, check out our short films Alone and Rose Garden. Both are post-apocalyptic stories that we made ourselves. I hope you'll tap into some of that Studio 24 content, and I'll see you there.